Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Okay. So I believe it is 3.10 and 3.11. Yes. So today it is two shlokas, Bhagavad-gītā shloka 3.10 and 3.11. Saha yagya praja shrishva urovacha prajapatihi anena prasavishyadvam eshavu astva ishtakamato. Translation. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods along with sacrifices for Lord Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yajna sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation." Prabhu, can we have the second shloka also? Okay, shloka 3.11. Devan bhavayathanena te deva bhavayantu tvaha rasaparam bhavayantaha shreya param avapsyataha. Translation. The demigods, being pleased by sacrifices, will also please you, and thus by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. So wonderful. Okay. So this chapter is Karma Yoga, and needless to say, this is a scene happening in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where Arjuna is having doubts and he's asking the Supreme Lord, his relative, his friend, and now his guru, right? Because he is now asking Krishna not as a friend or relative. He is very serious about getting this knowledge to remove his doubt, because he's a Kshatriya and he has never withdrawn from battle, and now he's talking about withdrawing from battle. So this is very unlike and uncalled for a Kshatriya like Arjuna, who is very famous for his prowess, for his he's a great Kshatriya. So he has won many battles. So this is uncalled for. So he's asking he's not asking Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, who's also his charioteer, and now he's asking him to guide him how to remove his doubt, to give him this knowledge. So this series of questions. Now, this chapter is Karma Yoga. So in the previous few shlokas, we understood that everyone has to perform some work. Everyone has to perform duty, and work has to be done or performed as a sacrifice for Lord Vishnu. Otherwise, work will bind us to the material world, right? Therefore, then the Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, "O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for Lord Vishnu for his satisfaction. In that way, you will always remain unattached and free from bondage," right? Okay, so this is the formula of spiritual realization. We should be engaged in our prescribed duty. We should not stop work and go to the, we have heard so many things in the past that people used to retrieve from the city and go to jungle or Himalayas, and they would be able to sit down in meditation for spiritual realization. But this is not something we can do in this yuga. This is Kali Yuga. So there, for each yuga, there's a different prescribed method to achieve God realization or self-realization. So Lord Krishna is prescribing a very practical method, and this can be adopted by everyone and without any distinction. So whatever you are, no matter whatever work you are doing, whatever profession you are in, occupation, whether we like it or not, whether we know it or not, everybody in this material world is working under the three gunas, and everybody is working according to, everybody would fall under one of the varnas of the varna ashrama system. There is a Brahmana, there is a Kshatriya, there is a Vaishya, and there is a Shudra. So earlier, people were very conscious and they knew about this varna ashrama system, and they would happily choose the occupation or profession according to this varna. But now people are not aware of it. But irrespective of that, everybody is operating under these four varnas, right? And Srila Prabhupada he has said it so many times that large population is actually like practicing Shudrikal or practices of Shudra, right? Because they are not following religion. They are not, they're following bits and pieces of religion, and they call that religion. But that is not so. So Lord has a system, and that we all are operating under that system. So now he is prescribing this method, how we can be very practical, right? And how we can be happy. He has given all this formula, he has given all these details. In this case, he's talking about yajna or sacrifice. So he's telling, no matter what work you're doing, you practice, you do all that, you can still realize the highest perfection of life. That is the spiritual realization, providing you work under the regulation of yajna or sacrifice. Yajna means sacrifice. So there is no harm in working, but the work should be done. Work should not be abandoned, but it should be done for the Supreme Lord, yajna. So yajna means Lord Vishnu, yajna means sacrifice. So it has to be done for the pleasure of Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna. So work, the Vedas also say, karmana badhyate jantu. All living entities are bound up in the material engagement on account of their different kinds of karma or work. The secret is that you act on behalf of yajna or Lord Vishnu or the Supreme Lord, and you shall not be bound up by the reaction of your karma. So otherwise, work, what you do, will bind us. It will have a reaction. Action has a reaction, and it will bind us. And we'll not be able to be free ourselves from this engagement of this material world. So the engagement of body will continue if you work on your own responsibility and not for the supreme purpose of the Supreme Lord, Yajna or Vishnu. And so this shloka says that the proof regarding the performance of this sacrifice yajna is mentioned in the Vedic scripture. After the creation, it was so announced that if you want to be happy, you must perform sacrifices. The Vedic literature is created for guidance of the conditioned souls. Every living being who is in this material world is conditioned by the laws of material nature. Everybody is operating under the three gunas: Satogun, Rajogun, Tamogun. Goodness, passion, and ignorance. And this creation is a chance. It is a wonderful opportunity, especially this human life, human body, where you have higher intelligence and higher consciousness, where you can realize, you can do God realization. Is a chance to get rid of this material entanglement. And that this chance is open, available through by acting for the satisfaction of Lord, who is the Supreme Lord. So, Saha Yajna Prajaha Srishtva. Praja means the living entities. After being created, they were advised to perform yajna or sacrifice for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu. Anena, by this, prasavishyanva, you increase your enlightenment, and whatever you want, that will be satisfied by this yajna, that sacrifice. This is what Lord guarantees. He promises. He has a system. So according to the Vedic rituals, yajna or sacrifices offered to different devas, demigods. And who are these demigods? So we know that there are hundreds and thousands of demigods mentioned in the Vedic literature. And the whole portion of this Vedic literature is called Upasana Kanda. Upasana Kanda means worshipping different demigods. So these demigods are like different parts of the whole body of the Supreme Lord, right? So they are like the government of the king, just like there is one king, but there are many state officers in the government. Similarly, for the management of these universal affairs in this universe, there are different departments. And for each department, there is a particular director. Brahma is one of them. Brahma is considered to be the supreme director of this universe. So by the Vedic rituals, this Yajna sacrifice, they are indicated to pay different taxes to different demigods. So we would be able to satisfy demigods, and they are working for the Supreme Lord, Lord Vishnu, and by the Supreme Lord is above all of them. So they are working under the direction of the Supreme Lord as the administrators. So therefore, if one performs these sacrifices for the Supreme Lord, he is immune from all other obligations. Then Supreme Lord is Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, and that is also mentioned. Deva Rishi Bhutapta Vrinam Pitranam Nayam Kinkaro Rini Cha Rajan Sarvatmana Yahas Charanam Sharanyam Gata Mukundam Parihiruttiva Kartam. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 5th chapter, 41 shloka. O king, one who has given up all material duties and has taken full shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Mukunda, who offers shelter to all, is not indebted to the demigods, great sages, ordinary living beings, relatives, friends, mankind, or even one's forefathers who have passed away. So, since all such classes of living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, one who has surrendered to the Supreme Lord, to the Lord's service, has no need to serve such persons separately. This also Lord guarantees. He's saying that. So he's giving us a formula. So as soon as a living being is born in this material world, he has got so many obligations. We just mentioned all these list of all the people, all the living entities we are obligated to: demigods, sages, other living beings, relatives, friends, and so many forefathers. So why he has definitely got obligations to demigods? Why demigods? Why obligation? We know that demigods, for example, sun god, sun, he's supplying us light all the time, and we are dependent on this light. Plants, they go through photosynthesis. Sun provides light, sun provides energy, right? So if we consume, we know that we consume electricity, we use telephones, and we are obligated to the state, to the company, to the electric powerhouse of the company, for supplying the light and connection and all that facilities. And we got some, similarly, we have got obligation to the sun god or the moon god for providing us. And similarly, air, moon, air, earth, water, etc. And in so many ways, we are taking advantage of the supernatural powers of the Supreme Lord, right? Similarly, we are indebted to the rishis, these great sages, because they have left behind these Vedic knowledge, and we are taking advantage of that. Bhagavad-gītā or Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, many other Upanishads, Puranas, they're all books of knowledge. They're guiding us. So we are indebted to Deva, Rishis, Bhuta. Bhuta means ordinary living, general living beings in our dealings. For example, we go to lawyer, medical practitioner, or teachers in the school, etc. So many of these. So we have to pay, right? So this is not mercy, but this is an obligation. Similarly, we are obliged in so many ways to the supernatural power, to the sages, other living beings, animals. We consume cow's milk, so we are indebted to the cow. And so we don't, for example, if we don't pay electricity bill or telephone bill, it will be cut off. But we must be conscious of our indebtedness in so many ways to the supernatural powers of the Supreme Lord. He's giving us, he's providing us all these 24/7. So Pitras means, Pitranam means family in which we have taken birth. We are indebted to our forefathers. So therefore, according to the Vedic rites, in certain time, we have to offer respects to our forefathers. Shraddha ceremony, we have to perform these. So we are indebted to so many of these. So obligations are there. But Sarvatma Yaha Sharanam Sharanyam Gato Mukundam Na Sarini Cha Na Kinkara. The Bhagavad-gītā says, if somebody fully surrenders to the Supreme Lord Mukunda, Mukunda means one who can offer liberation to us from this material bondage. So if one surrenders fully to Krishna, Krishna is Mukunda, then he's no longer indebted, what all the list we mentioned earlier, all other obligations, he's immune. And in one stroke, he becomes liquidated from all other obligations. The Lord says, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Sri Krishna is giving guarantee. He's mentioned this in Bhagavad-gītā. So he has given us all these formulas, uh, how to free ourselves from these obligations by performing what obligation? By surrendering to the Supreme Lord. Because if for every action, there is a reaction. So because we are indebted, we are consuming, right? So if you don't satisfy your indebtedness, then there will be a reaction. It will be sin, right? But if you surrender to the Supreme Lord, then we will be protected from all reaction. Therefore, it is very easy. By one installment, we can be free from all obligation. Similarly, all indebtedness has to be liquidated. If we are unable to liquidate, then we will be sinner, and that's a reaction, and then we'll have to suffer reaction. Whether it is in this life or next life, it's there. So we have to free ourselves from these obligations. But we can save ourselves from this reaction of these sins if we surrender to the Supreme Lord. So yajna means to satisfy the Supreme Lord. And if we don't do that, then we will be obliged. Otherwise, means that the act which is done for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, that is immune from all reaction. Wonderful, isn't it? Supreme Lord is himself telling us options. He's giving us a wonderful option after giving us other options. But anything which is not done for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, that will oblige us in so many ways. It will bind us to the obligation, and we will have to repay that after many, many continuation of this repetition of births and deaths. So this cycle of birth and death will continue. And so we have to free ourselves from this material bondage, from this reaction. That is the secret of life. And if we want to live a life of sacrifice, yajna, then you will never be unhappy. You'll never be in want. We become unhappy for want of things that which we require. This is practical. So Srila Prabhupada gives an example. In 1942, in Bengal, there was a famine, and so many people were dying because of scarcity of food. There were also diseases and all that. So, but Srila Prabhupada, he inquired from so many people. He was finding out. In cities and villages, he approached and he found out that people who were engaged in devotional service in one way or another, somehow they were managing. Although so many people had died, and he was surprised. Those who were in some way or another, they were in touch with devotional service. Because he had inquired from so many people individually. He had approached them, cities and villages. He was surprised. And they mentioned that they were somehow managing. They were not in difficulty, somehow they were managing, they were cooperating. And this is a practical proof he got that he was very satisfied with this discovery. They were not even in difficulty, in such a difficult, trying circumstances, in circumstances of famine. So this is a practical example. He was very pleased with this fact. Otherwise, there is unhappiness. This is also a fact. For anyone who's engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, whose life is dedicated to the service of the Lord, to the Supreme Lord, they'll somehow be protected and by the Supreme Lord. He's giving this guarantee. This is a practical proof. So Vedic injunction is that you do sacrifice for the Supreme, you will never be unhappy. You will never be in want. And the work which is engaged, which you are engaged in, it shouldn't be stopped, but you should continue to work. All you have to do is engage the result of your work, your life, as a sacrifice for the Supreme Lord, right? So this is how it is. And Srila Prabhupada gives a wonderful formula. He's saying that in Kali Yuga, so in all yuga, sacrifice has to be done. So in every yuga, there is a sacrifice mentioned. For Satya Yuga, there is one sacrifice. For Treta Yuga, there is another. And for Dwapar, there is another. And for Kali Yuga, there is a Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who came, who is Lord Krishna himself, who came somewhere some 500 years back. He gave this formula in this age of Kali. He mentioned, he emphasized Sankirtana Yajna, the chanting of the holy names of the Lord as a yajna is recommended by the Vedic scriptures, and this transcendental system was introduced by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for the deliverance of all men in this age of Kali. So yajna is there, yajna should not be stopped, work has to be done for the pleasure of the Lord, and especially in Kali Yuga, Sankirtana Yajna. Lord Krishna, in his devotional form as Lord Chaitanya, it is detailed about this in Srimad Bhagavatam. It is said that in this age of Kali, people who are endowed with sufficient intelligence will worship the Supreme Lord, who is accompanied by his associates by performance of Sankirtana Yajna. They will be glorifying the Lord. They'll be glorifying his names by chanting the holy names of the Lord, by performing the Sankirtana Yajna. Other yajnas prescribed in the Vedic literatures are not easy to perform in this age of Kali. But Sankirtana Yajna is easy and sublime for all purposes, and it is mentioned in Bhagavad-gītā. There's more detail in Shloka 9.14 of Bhagavad-gītā also, and Chaitanya Charitam, that's all about it. So Krishna has not sent us to this material world. He has not abandoned us. He has given us all the system, all the formulas. It's just that we have forgotten about this. So this Bhagavad-gītā is passing on this knowledge to us. All one has to do is hear it from a bona fide guru or his disciples and hear the message as it is. So, and one be able to achieve the self-realization, the very purpose of this life, and he can make his life successful in this very life itself. So I would like to thank you all, Prabhuji, Mataji. Thanks for joining for this sloka recitation. Please continue to join again tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.